Hello my friends, I have for you today a modern deck tech. I call this deck Serial Killer. You may have heard it called Cheerios, SRAM-Os, or Exploding Toolshed. I made that one up, I apologize. If you've been paying any attention to modern, it's been shaken up a lot lately. And this is the deck that I built a long time ago. I saw a primer for it on MTG Goldfish a long time ago. But in this last set, we got a new piece to this puzzle, which makes this deck a lot more consistent and will kill on turns 2 through 4 and beyond in Modern, which is really fast. However, what keeps it unbanned, I believe, is how just fragile this combo can be, and we'll get into that. So the first thing you'll notice is when I sort by converted mana cost, it brings up all these dorky artifacts. We have Bone Saws, Kite Shields, Mox Opals, Paradise Mantles, Spider Silk Nets, Quarter Shields, Cathar Shields, and a one-of Golem Skin Gauntlets. Well, why would you run all these really bad equipments, you might ask? Well, the answer are these guys right here. Pure Steel Paladin and SRAM Senior Edificer. So what these guys do is when you cast one of those dorky equipments, you get to draw a card. Pure Steel Paladin is enter the battlefield. Slightly different, but it still works. So what this allows you to do is, because you run so many of these, you're trying to draw your whole library. Now every time you cast one of these things, there's this little thing called Storm Counter that goes up. That's for our payoff with a Grape Shot. Other cards we use to enable this combo: Retract. It allows me to bring back all of my artifacts to my hand, allowing me to cast them again, draw more cards, etc., etc. Not just Revival for rebuying Retracts usually. Sometimes you have to get back a Paladin or a SRAM for the combo. A Swan Song is here solely to protect your creatures. Or the odd mid-combo counter spell. It's a little weird. Serum Visions is Serum Visions. Any combo deck in Modern is going to run it. And lands, only 14. Yes, I agree, risky biscuits, but this is definitely a risk it for the biscuit deck. This deck goes absolutely nuts. I've seen this played more often on Magic Online. I personally have it built in paper, and I think it's a lot of fun to play. It's one of those decks that if you bring it to your Modern event, you bring it to any Modern event at all, not just at your local store, you're gonna have a couple people like looking over at you, maybe coming to your table, trying to see what you're doing, because the board state gets ridiculous, and it's just that constant slap of the card on the battlefield is entertaining to do and entertaining to watch, not so much for your opponent. Really, that's the core of the deck. You just have to dig for your combo, hope they don't have a couple things that are silver bullets to you. Other than that, it's fairly simple. Sideboard, Echoing Truth. This card is for Leyline of Sanctity and Chalice of the Void. Leyline stops Grape Shot from working, and Echoing Truth is a cheap spell that you can use to bounce them, even multiple ones with one spell, if they had multiple in their opening hand, or just cast another one in the case of Mono White Devotion. Hercule's Recall, some extra. This is a little dual purpose. It shores up your turns against Affinity, which is, the fastest aggro deck in the format, is going to be one of your harder matchups, but it also has a dual purpose as another Retract, allowing me to bounce my own artifacts mid-combo. Super helpful. Noxious Revival, an extra in the board, just to rebuy those utility spells, or maybe one of my creatures. Path to Exile, because sometimes you just need it. I've played around with this being a dismember, but with Death Shadow running around, Path to Exile just seems better. Enchantments, Leyline. There are other combo decks running around ad nauseum. I've encountered one other Cheerios player in my life. Other than that, it's just a good utility. It protects you against Thoughtseize and Inquisition and a lot of these things that can cause you a lot of problems. And finally, an extra Grape Shot. There is a mill deck in my meta, so I am obliged to play an extra win con somewhere in the deck. I should probably move it to main board, but we'll get there when we get there. And Relic of Progenitus is just a silver bullet against graveyard decks like Living End. It's fairly good against Death Shadow, against Tarmogoyf. All these things are just super good. Other things you might consider for this deck. Paradoxical Outcome. This is what the standard version of Cheeri0s uses to recur its artifacts. It's a little more expensive, but it gets the job done in a slightly different way. And sometimes that can be useful. Not all the time. Usually I just stick with rechecks. I've tested with Paradoxical, but because I have access to these other artifact bouncing spells, it underperforms compared to those. I used to run these Kite Sail Apprentices. Again, not ideal. It is a creature. It does die to Lightning Bolt when it is not equipped. And now with the new build with SRAM, if you don't have Pure Steel Paladin, you're not going to be able to equip a lot of things to this Kite Sail Apprentice. It was nice, I admit, against certain Delver lists, but other than that, it was really kind of useless, so it ended up getting a cut. Cards that you care about because you will lose to them. Chalice of the Void. So every Eldrazi deck, many control decks, even some aggro decks now are starting to throw these in the sideboard because they are so effective against certain strategies, like our strategy, or in fact, almost any control or combo strategy. Chalice on the Void on 0. For 0 mana, they turn off your deck. Which, again, yes, I know, risky, but this deck is all about the risky biscuit. We're trying to play as many utensils as we can so we can eat that risky biscuit. Again, we run Echoing Truth for this card as well as Leyline. Another card that can be annoying, Spell Snare. Just counters your payoff creature. Paladin and SRAM. Really the only cards you care about. Technically can counter Grape Shot, but with the way Storm works, putting all the copies on the stack, you don't care. Don't be me and try and play around a Spell Snare when you're playing Grape Shot with Storm Count 30. Don't be dumb, because I was dumb. Path to Exile. Because we're running Noxious Revival, any normal removal like Fatal Push or Lightning Bolt, we can recur our creatures from the graveyard with Noxious Revival. And now with 8 creatures that are a payoff, it's more likely that we draw into a new one anyway. Path, however, doesn't give us that option to recur it from the graveyard because your creature goes to exile. This is why we run a Swan Song in the main board. Another card you could consider in this spot is Brave the Elements, which gives your white creatures, which Paladin and SRAM are, protection from a color of your choice until end of turn, but the utility of being able to use this on someone else's creatures is why it's in my sideboard. The last thing is Thoughtseize, and this is not just Thoughtseize, this is any hand removal in Modern. Thoughtseize, Inquisition of Kozilek. I've played against Appetite for Brains, which we don't really care about, and I've played against Collective Brutality. That one's probably the worst. They'll kill your guy and take a card from your hand, usually a Retractor at Moxo Bowl. It is very, not a Moxo Bowl on Brutality. You know what I mean. Anyway, this is the hardest thing to do. If they're turn 1 hand disruption, turn 2 hand disruption, turn 3 hand disruption, a lot of the times you just can't recover from that. But that's an inherent weakness of a combo deck. This is why we have our 4 Leyline in the sideboard. Oh yeah, alternative win cons are Monastery Mentor, and another common one is Laboratory Maniac. I much prefer the Mentor, as it's easier to create a board state where you can win from, assuming they have Leyline of Sanctity, which is really what's stopping you grape shotting with Monastery Mentor, than it is to Lab Maniac. For Lab Maniac, you have to draw your entire deck for it to work, and a lot of the times the mana is so tight that you just can't do it. I've gotten to the point with Lab Maniac, I've had all of the cards in my deck in my hand, but simply no way to produce the mana to cast Lab Maniac, to cast my final equipment to win the game. So this is why I run Monastery Mentor. With Fatal Push entering the format, I may go back to Lab Maniac or have a mix of the two in the sideboard, because Mentor has to sit for it to do anything, which is inherently weak against removal. So Lab Maniac being able to go out there and just immediately win the game on that turn might be more suited to the meta I play in, and maybe suited less to the meta you play in. That's a judgment you have to make if you build this deck. Overall, this deck is, if anything, a hell of a lot of fun to play. You sit down to play, once it hits turn 2, you have that constant slapping sound of cards hitting the table, and that dejected look of, oh my god, I'm being killed on turn 2 from your opponent is super worth it. Other than that, that's all I got. So, just a reminder that toughness is power, and I'll see you next time.